Hi everybody, let's do some stage makeup. To start, let's talk about what materials you're going to need. Your required materials are going to be a foundation, sometimes a concealer, powder, contour and or blush, and some mascara, and then a little bit of eyeshadow as well. There are also a lot of different optional materials that you can invest in if you'd like. One of those things being a primer to start out your face, which we'll talk about in a second, a setting spray as well. And then also, as you're applying your makeup, you get to decide how much you want to invest in the materials that you use to put the makeup on your face. So if you are not someone that wants to invest in sponges or brushes or things like that, you're more than welcome to apply this makeup using your fingers and the makeup applicators that come in like the eyeshadow palettes and things like that. What I'm going to be using today are a couple of different materials, things like a sponge. You guys can tell this one is well loved. I'm going to use a couple of different brushes. And when you use brands like e.l.f., you can usually find these types of brushes for about $2 to $7 about. I'm going to use a powder brush, this brush for my bronzer and my blush, and then this for my eyeshadow. But I'll also be showing you throughout the video how to apply the materials that we're going to use using your fingers as well, and the materials that are given to you in the makeup palettes. So first things first, I'm starting with a bare face. I like to put on a bunch of moisturizer before I start, just so that my face is comfortable, and then I'm going to get my hair out of my face. If I were to start with a primer, I'd start out with something like this. This is a gel-based primer, the Power Grip e.l.f. primer. I'm not going to start with that today, but if that's something, if you notice that you sweat a lot when you're on stage and you want to make sure that your makeup stays on for a long time, that's going to be for you to invest in a primer. When you're doing stage makeup, you want to go about a half a shade to a full shade darker than your natural skin tone. What I have here is more of a BB cream. It's less of a foundation and it's a lighter consistency that doesn't feel so heavy on the face. But again, you're welcome to use whatever materials you have access to at home, or when you go to Target, feel free to go for the cheapest items on the shelves. I use two different shades so that I can customize how dark of a foundation shade that I end up putting on my face for my stage makeup. So for this, I'm using 201 and 203 of the Infallible Pro Glow by L'Oreal. So what I'm going to start out by doing is just taking the light shade, putting a small dot on the back of my hand, then taking the darker shade and putting quite a bit more of the darker shade on the back of my hand. Like I mentioned, you're more than welcome to use your fingers for things like this, just rubbing it between your fingers and kind of going crazy, dabbing into the different crevices of your face. I like using one of these sponges. You can find it at a bunch of different price points. The one that I like the most because of the consistency is the Sonia Kashuk, and it's about $7 at Target. There's also a bunch of different sizes of sponges by e.l.f. that are even more price effective. So on the back of my hand, I just have my two different shades, and then I'm going to mix them all up together, scoop it all onto my sponge, and I start out by just putting a bunch of dots all over my face. If I were using my fingers, I would first just rub it all in as much as I could. But because I'm using my sponge, starting on one cheek and just doing big dabbing motions all across the face. Going up into my under eye, and I'm going right on top of my eye as well. So lightly shut your eye and go right on top. Going over the top of the eyebrow, all the way down. And then, in my opinion, the most important part is making sure that you also go all the way down to halfway down your neck. When you're doing stage makeup, because you're doing a shade darker, it can be difficult to make sure that you're blending in a way that still makes it look like your natural skin. So I'm going up onto your ear, underneath your chin. Next thing I'm grabbing is a super old concealer. Again, like I said, finding whatever you already have around the house. For me, I've been using this one for a while. This is a pretty light shade. It has this type of applicator. It's just kind of foam tipped on the end. You can also find sometimes a stick concealer. It's whatever seems like it would be the most comfortable on your face. Where I'm going with my concealer is I'm going to my under eye. And this is a lighter color. And you can see the kind of stark difference. But the reason that we're putting a lighter color under the eye is so that your eyes don't blend in with the rest of your face and your under eyes can be brighter. I also have some blemishes that I'd like to cover up. So I'm going around the edges of those areas of my face, dotting it on. I also tend to use this as right on top of my eyelids as well. Another optional item that you could be using is a eyeshadow primer. And then I'm just blending that in as well. I'm going to go in and use is a powder. And this is a brand new one because the one that I have is completely destroyed. These powders typically come with a powder puff in the pack, which again, use what you already have if you want to. So it comes with a little powder puff like this. You go right on top and then just powder it across your face. I personally prefer the way that a brush works a little bit better because I think it gets it into my skin in a more natural way. But I just go right on top. And the reason that we're putting on a powder is so that the foundation stays in place for longer. Next up, I'm also going to use something that I've had for a long time. This is a palette of makeup products that has a blush and a couple of different colors of bronzers and a powder as well as a highlight, and you can see this thing has been well loved. This would be something nice to invest in for someone who is planning on being a part of shows again in the future, because this is another great powder. So this has everything else that you would need almost for the rest of the tutorial that you're about to see. So what I'm going to go in with first is, this is another situation where you could use a powder puff that's given to you in one of your other elements of makeup, like that powder puff that was given to you in your powder. But I'm going to go in with a brush that looks like this. I just like how it feels. There's really no wrong answer in terms of if there's a different brush that works well for you. But I'm going to go in and grab some of my bronzer. And this is where we're going to bring in a little bit more of the dimension of the face and bring your face to life. So I go up high onto the tops of my cheekbones and bring some color back to the face. If you're someone that feels more confident with their makeup skills, you're more than welcome to take a cream contour and do some of that carving out of the cheekbones. That's not something that I'm super confident in, and not something that I at all require of anybody. But I just keep building. And the great thing about a bronzer like this is that you can pick up a little bit, and if it's not enough, then you just keep adding. Because of the way that my hairline goes, I like to bring it up farther. Bring it into the corners. There where my hair hits. And then I'm going to try to make it look as similar on the other side. Then I'm going to use the same brush and I'm going to pick up some of that middle blush. The reason that I'm going to use a darker brush is, again, you're on stage, and so the lighting that's going to hit you is going to wash you out quite a bit more than natural lighting. So I'm picking up some of that darker blush color, starting out by just dotting a little bit on either side, and then it looks a little crazy for a second, but then take your brush and keep blending. Another optional element would be something like a nose contour. For me personally, when I'm doing my own stage makeup and honestly my day-to-day makeup as well is I take what's left on my brush, pull it down the nose, put it on the top of your nose. Call it a day. The next step that I'm going to go into is another more required element, and that's to bring back some life into the eyebrows. And so I'm using a little e.l.f. brow spoolie that it's called Wow Brow, and it has a eyebrow product that comes onto a spoolie. What I like about that is, again, if you're feeling confident in your makeup skills, you're more than welcome to draw in your eyebrows, use an eyebrow pencil. But what I like about an eyebrow spoolie is that you can just brush it into your eyebrows and simply bring back some color to bring a little bit more drama. Maybe go farther in on the insides. But that's all I'm going to do to my eyebrows. I don't draw in a ton, but I just bring back some of that color because the rest of the face is a little bit more dramatic. Then for your eyeshadow, this is another less required element of your stage makeup, but I went and I found a super simple CoverGirl eye makeup palette, which came with 3 different shades, the darkest, middle, and then the lightest. These makeup palettes typically come with a super simple little sponge that you can pick up the product and swipe it onto your eye. You're welcome to do that, as well as I am a firm believer in using your fingers to apply eyeshadow. The base that I'm going to start with would be something like this darkest color right here. The darkest or the lightest, depending on your skin tone. I also like to use the same color that I use on my cheeks for bronzer. So I'm going in with that bronzer color, and that's going to be my base. If you do anything for eye makeup, I would suggest taking your bronzer, putting it onto either a brush, that sponge material, or even just your finger, and going in to the outside, twisting it around, and bringing it to the inside of your eye. And I would suggest this to any performer. That will bring back, again, some of the definition of your eye. Then, if you have a feminine character, that's where I would suggest building onto more of that eye makeup. A lot of these colors have some shimmer in them, so when I'm using shimmer, I'll usually take a finger, massage it in there, and then apply it to the inner corners. I'm going to choose to build a couple of different colors so that you guys can see what building on eyeshadow looks like. I'm not someone that uses a bunch of different makeup brushes. I'm really just going to use the same one for a bunch of different colors. The only thing that I would be careful of is when you're mixing colors, if you're using a dark color and then moving into a light color. So I started with a light bronze. I'm going to go and find a little bit of a darker bronze color to accentuate the outer corners. Dabbing that, and then not being nervous when it's dark because we can just blend. I'm working in circular motions, pulling it inward the same way that I worked in the bronzer. And it doesn't look completely blended, but I'm going to keep building upon it so I'm not worried about it. I'm a big fan of shimmer, and so I'm going to be adding some shimmer to the inner corner. That color that I picked up from the CoverGirl palette, I can use one of those. This is a palette that I've had for too long, but it has lots of different fun shimmery colors. So I'm going to take, when I'm using shimmer, I'm taking my middle finger or my ring finger, I'm picking some up, and then I'm applying it to the middle of my eye. and just patting it in and overlapping it with the other eyeshadow that I've done on the outside. And that is literally all that I am going to do with my eye makeup. 3 different colors. For those of you that don't have a feminine character, I'd keep it simple, stick with a bronzer or no eyeshadow at all. One of the last things that I'm going to do is I'm going to use some mascara. I'm not someone that invests in super expensive mascara. I found this telescopic lift because I'm always trying new types of mascara. For stage makeup, I'm going to suggest a black or blackest black mascara. It doesn't need to be anything fancy. This is just, again, to accentuate your eyes. This is for all performers. And don't be afraid to make a couple of strange makeup faces. If you are someone, again, that feels really comfortable with makeup and wants to invest a couple more dollars into your makeup bag, something that I did not do before putting on my mascara, but sometimes do, is I use an eyelash curler, which basically you just go in, and I'm not going to do it because now I've put on my mascara, and it can pull out your eyelashes if you do it after mascara. But you put it over the top of your eyelashes and press, and it'll curl them upwards. But that is not a required element. The last thing that I'll say is if you're feeling extra glittery and glamorous, there are 2 different types of highlighter. There's a cream highlighter or there's a powder highlighter. The type of highlighter that I have is the powder. I take a big fluffy brush. You really could also use your powder brush if you're only investing in a couple of brushes. Pick up a little, dust it onto the highest points of your cheeks, and call it a day. Again, if you have a more feminine character, you can put on as much lip product as you want. What I would suggest for any character is a product called a lip liner. So if you're someone who your lips have now ended up kind of blending into the rest of your face, using something like this. This is a very pink lip liner, but there are a bunch of different colors of lip liners. A brown lip liner just to draw out the edges of your lips so that they have a little bit more definition. I have this, again, very old lip stain that is a brownish, reddish color that to me gives me great definition for the stage. So that's going to be the last element that I apply. So that's the last element that I'm going to add to my makeup. Another optional element is going to be the setting spray, which just for fun, I'm going to apply today. And that's going to help your makeup stay for longer. All right, let's talk about some stage hair. So your stage hair is really going to depend on the character that you're playing. Some people might be wearing wigs, and wigs really just consist of getting your hair into some really tight braids, pulled back super tight so it can be hidden underneath a wig cap, and then your wig placed on top and pinned into place. But if you're doing your natural hair for a show, like I said, it depends on your character. If you're someone that needs to do something slicked back, a couple of things that you might want to invest in are gel and some bobby pins to get things set into place. If you are doing anything with your hair down or half up, half down, the only requirement that we will have is making sure that your hair is pulled back in a way or styled in a way that is going to make sure that you don't have anything pulled in front of your face. We always want to be able to see your eyes and your facial expressions. And so a couple of things that can help with that is, first of all, finding a style that might be pulled back some, pinned back, and using things like hairspray, more bobby pins, some of these elastic hair ties, the clear ones so that they aren't seen. And then another thing is when you're doing a whole bunch of shows all in a row, and your hair is getting dirtier and you want to be able to freshen it up, I also would highly suggest investing in some dry shampoo to freshen up your hair during performances or the day of performances. So the only requirement that you'll have is to make sure that your hair is styled out of your face and pulled back so that we can see your facial expressions. Don't be nervous. Feel free to ask your friends for any help that you might need, and break a leg.